I thought today I'd do a little review of the bike. I hadn't done one in a while. And the bike in question is my CRF250L. And I'm coming up to 20,000 kilometers now. So I thought it would be a good time to say a little bit about the bike, my impressions thus far. And I have to say that thus far, I am really pleased with this bike. It had a hiccup, a little problem that developed that I think was avoidable if Honda had taken a bit more care in creating the cam chain tensioner for this bike. I'll put a link up to the problem I had and the solution right here. But other than that, the bike has been excellent. And I guess you'd expect that from a Honda, or any Japanese bike for that matter. But I've been very happy with it. It suits my purpose, and my purpose is I use it as my regular transportation around town. I use it to go up into the hills and play in the dirt, get muddy. And I use it to take short highway trips. So for me, the bike has performed admirably because I'm not using it for anything it's clearly not designed for. And I think that that's an important consideration if you're thinking of this bike. You have to ask yourself, what am I going to use it for? Well, if you use it for the same things I do, and you like to get up into the dirt areas quite a bit, but yet you want to ride it around town and get to the dirt areas so that you don't trailer a bike, then this is ideal. I think it is. It handles very, very nicely in the city. It handles beautifully on dirt, I think. Other people's thoughts on that are different. Maybe someone with a background in dedicated dirt bikes would say that this bike is a little bit sluggish in the dirt, poor suspension, but coming from a background of no dirt riding experience and not really wanting to get into hardcore dirt riding, I'd say that this bike is really good for that. I think it handles great on the dirt. I mean, literally, it'll go anywhere. There's nothing that's going to be too rough. So, you can be confident in that. So if that's what you want the bike for, and you're not going to want it to go on long, extended, highway-only trips, then I'd say it's a perfect bike. The first thing that people notice about it is, well, you know, it's got a good amount of torque because they've designed it for going off-road. So they've focused the power in the low to mid-range. So it's pretty torquey to start with. But a lot of people find, me included, that when you first get this bike and you take it out on the highway, unless you live in dead flat land, if you've got any hills, and I live in mountainous country, this bike does not perform on the highway well at all because sixth gear is almost entirely useless. You know, you flip into it on one of the rare level stretches, and as soon as you get up, have to climb a bit, you know, you're downshifting. It just doesn't have the power in sixth gear. So it's strictly an overdrive gear for those who live in flat land. And for those that do, more power to them, because then they'll have that great fuel economy that the bike has stock. But for everyone else, it's over-geared. The ratios are too low. So you get, you know, the gearing is too high, eh? And The solution to that is to raise the ratios by, probably the most common method is to put a 13-tooth countershaft sprocket on. And I did that, and it improved the bike tremendously. In my case, I also put the 42-tooth rear sprocket on and had added some extra kick down low, which I like. It makes it a bit buzzy for the highways though, you know, a little bit too high revving. It's comfortable at 90 kilometers per hour, but anything over that, it's revving a bit, you know. The other thing that people notice with this bike is it could use a little bit more power. So what I did, and what a lot of people do, is I put a fuel controller on the injection system so that I can alter the air-fuel ratios, and that performs magic on this bike. Also, what I did was I opened up the air box after getting the fuel controller. Important not to do that before. And what I did there was I enlarged the hole in the top of the air box so that it could accommodate a 2-inch inside diameter rubber elbow. And that increases the available air by 60% without making the bike susceptible to sucking in water, as some people run the risk of doing when they drill out the side of the airbox cover. So that's just my preference. It works for me. And apart from that, the only other performance modification I've done is, and I did this a couple days ago, and I'll put a little video up right here, the link. What I did was I modified the stock spark arrestor so that it is repositioned in the muffler, in the back part of the muffler, rather than in the middle compartment where it is normally. And what that does is it decreases the back pressure and allows more flow through the exhaust. When I did this, I was surprised at the effect it had. At first it decreased the performance because it was leaning out the bike quite a bit. So I increased the fuel in stages and arrived at a point where I definitely am performing better than it was prior to the mod, quite noticeably. Thought I'd show you the other mods that I've made to the bike. Pro Taper pillow top grips, much better feel. I've got the ROX risers, and they're the pivoting risers that you see right there. And you know, I don't need it on pavement, but when you're in the dirt, I'm tall enough that these bars are too low in stock form. So I have these, and I like them because you can throw the bar forward, you can fine-tune height and position. So it's nice. Zeta hand guards, and they're the bend models which have that dip, and I find the dip is really important. It helps because when you lay the bike down, this hits first, protecting your levers quite nicely. I think it's better. Let's see, I like the stock turn signals, so I didn't get the ones with the integrated signals. I like these because they're bigger, you can see them better. Safety first. This shift lever, folding shift lever from a Honda CRF250L. It fits the bike perfectly, and it's made of this steel, so it can bend and you can rebend it and so forth, rather than the aluminum, which is very rigid, and you don't want to break your shaft. If you catch it there instead of at the folding tip, you can break the shaft otherwise. What else? The Moose Racing Pro skid plate is what I chose. It's plastic. I like it because it's nice and silent. Slides over rocks and stumps and such, you know, easier than the metal. in my opinion anyway. It's more expensive, but I think it's worth it. The tail light section, a lot of people go for the systems that they buy and, you know, plug and play kind of thing. What I did, inspired by a friend of mine who had done this, Devin from CRFadventures.com, and he's on YouTube under that name as well. That's his username on YouTube also. And anyway, he did this, and I thought, well, what a good idea, because it keeps your stock tail light and signals. You've got a place to mount your plate, and then underneath, to illuminate the plate, you just cut a hole and then glue, epoxy glue, a piece of clear plastic there. So now the same bulb illuminates there as well as your taillight function. So you're basically just taking all this off and then cutting the bottom end of it off. So you lose a whole bunch of crap. And I think it looks pretty good. You know, it's nice and streamlined. I think that's it. RAM mount for the GPS. I'm probably forgetting something, but probably not important. Speedo DRD, of course, you know, with the 13 and 42 sprockets, Speedo DRD is necessary. I think it was out by 25% or something on the Speedo. It's ridiculous. In stock form, this bike was out 10%. You know, it's just crazy. Anyway, it's not now. I also disconnected the O2 sensor. There's debate as to whether it's beneficial, but I definitely find it beneficial. It has a function, so when you disconnect it, the function doesn't operate. Clearly there's a difference. Its function is to put it into closed loop on low to mid throttle and load. So when you disconnect it, the bike stays in open loop, so that means that it is not trying to alter the fuel and leaning the bike out as much as, you know, according to Honda spec kind of thing. So it doesn't try to fight against the fuel controller that I've added. So it makes sense. You do suffer a little bit on fuel economy by disconnecting it, but there is more kick in the low to mid-range. So yeah, I think that's it. I love the bike, but I would probably like a second motorcycle to go on extended highway trips, because this bike just isn't that bike. But it's a really nice bike for what it's built for. Around town, you know, to me, you can't beat it. It's so nimble. It's high up. You can see traffic. It's just great. So I'm really happy with the bike at 20,000 kilometers. And I would totally recommend it if it is the type of bike that fits your needs and desires. It's well built. Just watch that cam chain tensioner. Anyway, take care, and you have fun. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below.